So today, I'm at Zion and listening, and there were a few names that were called out by one of the remembrance people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I heard Melanie's name.
Yeah.
I heard your name among the few that were called out. Since it is so fresh, as you sat there and listening to the eulogies for Ron, what floated through Karen Bakewell's?
Love.
Mm-hmm.
I, everyone had a little bit different perspective on their time with Ronnie, but I thought the thread that continued through all of them was the love that they felt for each other, and I think that was an important message. The story reminded me of my time with Ronnie. It was a wonderful time. I think Chappelle was talking about how you would be running a race and you could hear your name being called. And I knew it was Ronnie. I knew he was going to be there for me at the end of the race. He was there to appreciate what I had just done, and it gave me this belief in myself that I'm able to hold on to for all these years and take it with me, and it helped me along the way. So I think he did that for a lot of people. He took these little kids and he gave them inspiration, he gave them hope, and he helped us have successful lives. Yeah.
Did he tell you to lean?
Yes, I lean there. Oh gosh, yeah. I can hear his voice, and I heard his voice even when I went to college, and I always wanted to do better because I could hear him screaming my name and encouraging, and at the end, of course, he had all kinds of pointers like lean. We were talking with the other guys about he had us these workouts we had to do. We had to get up at 5 in the morning, and he wanted us to do these things called winders, and that's a term I haven't heard in about, I don't know, been 40 years or so.
But just for the camera, what's that? What's a winder?
Well, you are sprinting around the track. It's part of your workout. You sprint. You can either sprint the straightaways for a time, or you can sprint the curves for a time, and those are called winders. And he would say, go and do some winders.
Okay.
And then we would choose, do we sprint depending on what we wanted to focus on. So that's a winder.
Yeah.
I hope I have that correct, but yeah.
You weren't always a track person, were you?
I don't know, it's a leading question. I always ran. I always ran when I was a kid. In Euclid Elementary School, I was the fastest kid on the playground.
Okay.
But it wasn't organized. It was just, we would have these little races, and I was always running. So I was always running home, or running downtown, or running up the hills, Buffalo Street, and all of those hills. I was constantly running around. So I think it was partly just, I was recognized in my family as being fast, and so I took to running pretty easily.
Talk a little bit about your mom and dad. Was this sort of a natural? I mean, were they athletes as well?
Well, no. My mother, she was a mom mostly, and wonderful mom. But before that, I remember hearing stories that she wanted to ride her bike, so she'd go out and ride her bike. Well, one day she was riding and she fell and cut her leg, and her parents said, no more riding bikes. It's not for girls. So my mom didn't really have an athletic background. My dad My dad had polio when he was a kid, and so his feet and legs were deformed. So he didn't have an athletic background, but he loved sports. He loved baseball, and of course he loved the sports that I was playing in, and was my biggest fan. So that's the sports
Now, I
background.
saw in a book here about you, golf. Golf,
Oh, yeah.
Moonbrook Country Club.
Yeah.
And there would be a lot of boys and then one girl,
Yeah,
and it would be you.
Yeah, I loved golf. I loved all sports, really.
Is your dad a golfer?
Yes,
Yes.
my dad golfed. He did golf. So when we were young, he would take us to a golf range. He'd line us up. I have 4 siblings all together, and he would teach us how to swing the club and golf. So yeah, it was golfing. It was great. I loved that. I golfed a little bit, so I got a couple of awards from that. I didn't really continue golfing, and I met up with, in junior high school, I met Emily O'Neill,
Mm-hmm.
who was a teacher and a great athlete, coach, and she was a golfer, big-time golfer. She was really good. Well, I went golfing with her, I don't know, a couple of times, and I remember thinking, oh, I'm never going to be this good. And that was right around the time I was running, and I started focusing more on running around then.
In the picture I saw of just you with all those boys,
Yeah.
it looked like you were wearing cowboy boots. Was that something that was just happenstance, or did you ride horses too?
I didn't ride horses, no. It
Okay.
was just trying to be fashionable, I think. Yeah, so that was just part of the fashion statement I was making there. Boots, and I have boots on today. Boots and, trying to be a young kid coming up and that's
So you kind of made an aha moment of flipping into running, which seemed to be a natural skill set. But there weren't girls' track teams at the time.
no.
So how did you raise your hand and say, I want to be part of the
Yeah.
boys' track team?
Boy, I heard about Chautauqua Striders, and I ran on, in junior high with Emily O'Neill. She was coaching then. I don't know that she was really. I can't remember if she was the track coach for the junior high at that time, or if there was some competitions. I'm just not clear on that. So, but around that time, 8th grade or 7th grade, I knew of Chautauqua Striders, and went to Washington Field with the other kids and tried out. And in 9th grade, there still wasn't a women's track or a girls' track team, so I joined the boys' track team and ran with them for the season, my 9th grade season. And then, of course, when I went to high school, there was a team and ran with them.
So back in junior high school, being probably one of only a few, if maybe just you,
Yeah, it was just me.
was that weird?
Yeah, it was. It was, I'm trying to remember, Title IX didn't come out until 72, and then there was a lot of time in between before it really kind of took effect, or you felt more like you were benefiting from that. It felt odd, and I'm not sure the boys liked it too much, and but it was fun. I got to run in a relay team. We did pretty well, and it was a good experience because, of course, then I'm really running in a track meet, and I don't know. I guess it was an unusual feeling running with boys. Just we had
Did they
separate
treat
locker
you as an
rooms.
equal, or did they?
I don't think so.
No.
I kind of felt they didn't want to get beat by a girl. That was probably part of it. But, there was still the camaraderie, and we were still going for the same thing. So, I think they probably got over it.
Were there other, because I know you track against other junior highs and stuff. Did the other teams have girls?
No.
So you were it.
Yeah, I was the only one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was 79 or 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so not only are you got the junior high, but you have an opportunity then to sort of become part of Striders. What was the lure of Striders, other than it was pretty close to where you lived?
Yeah, right down the street.
Yeah.
I suppose the lure was, boy, Ronnie Graham. He was so encouraging and made you recognize the good in you and what you're capable of, and so that drew me there. And then meeting the kids, it was fun to run with these kids who were very talented, and we could compete with each other, and it was more competitive than anything else I had going then, right? I wasn't running in track meets, but it was just maybe in gym class and playgrounds and that kind of thing. So it was, I would say, Ronnie was very motivating, and I wanted to do better, and I wanted to show Ronnie what I was capable of. Yeah.
Was Ronnie a one-man show? Was there other coaches or other people who assisted him?
Wow, I am trying to remember. There were other coaches. I don't remember who they were. There were some coaches from even Dunkirk, and Ronnie would work together on the team. But for the most part, I mainly remember Ronnie. I mean, he's got a big personality. It's hard not to
He's a
remember
big
him.
personality. Did now, as part of being on the Striders, you worked out. It was after school. It was
Yeah.
at Washington. Did you have meets? Did Striders on weekends? How did that work?
Yeah. Well, we had, it was mainly in the summer months, and we would have meets, and the meets were in mostly Western New York. Sometimes we went to other places. It was a big deal when we got to go to Canada, Toronto, Hamilton, Ontario. I think that's where we went. And then eventually we went to some national meets. So we went to Duke and St. Louis, Missouri for some big ones. And so we had some, really, it was great exposure to go to some of these other meets, so that you could have more competition.
What were the economics of it all? Did he get how did he get funding for travel? It's expensive.
Yeah.
Overnights is expensive.
Yeah. So I remember we had to raise money, some donations. I think people contributed. There would be, an effort. We wanted to go to Duke University, and it was going to be very expensive. So I think community people came forward and donated money. Parents donated money. That's about what I remember. Is mostly donations, and I think maybe after I was at the beginning of Chautauqua, kind of at the beginning of Chautauqua Striders, where a lot of this stuff was kind of new. So what I've learned is that in the years after, there was more, kids would try to raise money in all kinds of ways they could, car washes and you name it. So it was, I think there was a evolution in how the finances appeared.
So you continued Striders right through during high school too? So that,
Yeah.
I mean, you're at Jamestown High School and on the track team.
Yeah.
Was there were you one, you had to be one of the earlier girls track team, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah. I was, but I was part of a great group, as you know. So we had Melody, Alicia, Cindy, and we had some really great boys that were fast. So those meets were mostly co-ed.
Ah.
Yeah.
So I guess I didn't appreciate that. I mean, so when there was a meet, it would be at the same time there'd be the women's doing the 200 and
Yeah.
at some place that built into the schedule itself. So it's both of you together.
Yeah, boys and girls.
Yeah.
Some of these bigger ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when you're younger, or at least when I was younger, the meets were just, this is the boys track meet and the girls track meet is another day, something like that. They didn't seem to be at the same time. But when we were running in these more competitive kinds of races, it was like boys and girls together.
And at high school, your coach was
Well, there was Dick Noonan.
Dick Noonan,
There was Vince Joy.
Vince Troy, right?
At the time of Vince Joy, there was a man named Marcus, and I can't remember his last name. And that's,
And Dick Noonan at the time also was the football coach?
I believe so, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was. He did multiple sports. Yeah.
And Vince was fairly senior, if I remember, same Vince Troy?
Vince Joy.
Yeah.
Well, Vince Joy was young. I mean,
Oh.
relative to
Okay.
to
Maybe it was the
Dick
son.
Noonan. Yeah,
Okay.
I think he was the son, because I
Yeah.
think I saw someone.
His dad,
Yeah,
probably,
yeah.
okay.
So this was his son, and there were at least one other coach there, Mark. I wish I could remember his name. He focused mainly on the distance runners, so that's probably why I don't remember his interaction as much.
So when you look at the record book, there's a whole lot of Karen Bakewells at 200, 400,
Yeah.
800.
Yeah.
How does one determine, or does the coach determine that, which is the best for you? How does that
Wow,
morph into
that's-
something?
That's really a good question, because when I was looking through my old records, I saw that I was also in the high jump, which to me doesn't seem like a natural fit since I'm not like that tall. But the coaches, I think it's both what they find out, what does the team need. Do we have a lot of sprinters? Well, if we have a lot of sprinters, then maybe you can do some of the other events. And who are the best sprinters? And maybe we focus on they'll be in the sprint events, and so they figure out what the team needs to cover all events. And
So you in high school, you were principally 200 meters?
yeah, I was 200, which is a sprint, of course, and
Well, for some of us, it's a marathon.
yeah.
Ed and I, it's a
Okay.
marathon.
Yes, it was definitely a sprint, but I just ran whatever they told me to run. Really, I didn't question. They wanted me to run the 100 today. I'll run the 100. That's probably how I got into the high jump and had a few meets where I participated in that.
Did you ever say you could go longer? Hey, coach, let me try the long distance.
No, I didn't. I think I didn't. Now in retrospect, of course, I wish I had, knowing that my record in the 800 and how I did so well in a longer distance. I wish I had thought of that, but at the time I was a young kid, and the sprints were glamorous.
Yeah.
And I was good at them, so I just wanted to do those. I didn't say anything about running a longer race, and with the longer races, they're harder. A lot more training is involved, longer race. It's more painful, I think.
Did you ever
Yeah.
feel like, hey guys, I'm going to take you on today? Was there ever sort of
my
a
gosh.
co-ed moment?
Oh, gosh. You mean take on the boys?
Yeah.
Um,
You know,
no.
get in the blocks, guys. I want to see what I can do against you.
I wasn't very, I wouldn't do that. No, I was too shy and too, well, quiet. I wouldn't think of doing something like that. I wish I had.
Out of
A
curiosity.
lot of people have that in them, especially some sprinters really have to have that kind of bring a attitude and that kind of to your race. It helps,
Yeah.
you know.
So through Jamestown High School, and at some point you graduate. Did you have a sense of that there would be life after high school? Was college part of your world?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was going to go to college. My friends were going to go to college. Yeah, I had a sense of there's definitely, more school after high school.
Why Miami?
Well, I visited the campus. It was beautiful.
It is gorgeous.
Beautiful campus. I got to go on tours while I was there. I met the coach. Ronnie knew the coach. There were some people in the community that had gone to Miami,
Mhm.
and it's a wonderful school. So, and I just fell in love with it.
Did you know that track would be part of your curriculum?
Yeah.
Were you recruited?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Who was your coach?
Jocelyn Williams, that was
Okay.
my coach starting out at Miami. And she was, at that time, women's sports and athletics were still kind of working working things out. And she was a track coach, but she was also working a full-time job at a bank, trying to make ends meet. So she was a great track coach, but she was only part-time. And I think it was the team didn't do well initially when I was first attending Miami, so it didn't do well. That coach
Did they have a
moved
girls'
on.
team, or was it just a club?
So it was a girls' team.
Okay.
They did have a girls' team, which was new, like relatively new in the last couple of years.
Okay.
It went from club status to team, and so, but the coach was still a part-time person. Now the boys, or the men, they had a regular track team. They had a coach that was full-time and great coach, and they did well. And I think after the first year I was there, the conference, Mid-American Conference, didn't go well. I mean, the team did poorly, and I think Jocelyn moved on to other things, and they hired a new coach, Rich Cerrone. And once Rich stepped in, he just did amazing things with the team. He took us from practically last place to first place, and he was a great coach, very structured, very organized, very is exactly what I wanted, needed, and that kind of structure and confidence was what I liked about Ronnie. Ronnie was always there. He was you knew who to go to when you needed something. And so when Cerrone came in, he really just turned everything around. And workouts were different. The grueling workouts. We worked very hard. We did just the hardest I've ever worked, physically towards something under him. And I wanted to do my best for him and for the team, of course. So it was really a wonderful experience, and great teammates. It was fun. It's a good time.
I'm looking at your 1984, this is 1984 time period.
Yeah.
MAC indoor champion, conference record, 400 meters, the Miami University outdoor school records in the 100, 200, 400 meters. Miami University indoor school records in the 55, 200, 300, 400, 500 meters. During a meet, did you feel like you were running every race?
Well, I ran many races in a meet. They would change it up a little bit. So in one meet I might run, 100 and 200 and relay, and the next I might run, a 200, a 400, and the 4x4, 4x8, something like that. So they tried to make sure you weren't running all the events at the same time. So but I ran so many different events that I accumulated records and a lot of different things. So yeah, from the sprints, when I arrived there as a sprinter. That's what they were going to have me run in. So I ran everything, 50s, 60, the 100, just 150, the 200, whatever it was. The sprints is where I started. Yeah.
Just curious, because of the differences, there's not, when you talk about a 50, a 60, was that just based on the meet, the size of the track, or was that sort of a uniform distance?
Well,
There's so many of them.
Yeah, there's so many of them. It varied. So, the indoor season, they have some shorter races, like the 50 or the 60 or the 150 or the 300, and those are kind of standard races for indoor season.
Yeah.
And then outdoor season was different, so they would have a little bit, they wouldn't have the 50s or 60s, there'd be 100, and then it would be, the 200, the 400, the 800, and so on. So it was structured depending on what, season, indoor or outdoor.
So you had a incredibly record-worthy 1984 in just about everything you touched.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I
you're a
trying to
freshman,
remember.
right?
Yeah. I honestly don't remember losing.
Yeah.
I don't remember losing ever, and of course, if I lost, I probably want to put it out of my mind. But I'm racking my brain to think of any time that I lost. Well, I can remember we went to Madison Square Garden, and I had to run the 50. It was I'd never even run the 50 before, and I remember there were people there from colleges where track was a big thing at their colleges, and I didn't win. I don't think I placed, so that was eye-opening when you go to some of those bigger events. But I would say in all of the meets in the MAC, I don't remember losing anything. 100, 200, 400, and then of course the 800 in a couple of years.
So did you keep in touch with Ron? Was he following your career?
Yes, he was following my career, and we'd keep in touch sporadically. When I first went to college, I missed the Striders, I missed Ronnie, and that kind of camaraderie and the competition and my group of friends. So I wrote Ronnie letters. I would tell him, what's going on in my schoolwork and on the track. And I was reaching. I wanted to hear what he had to say. And he was very proud. He was very proud of what I was doing.
Then you became redshirted for a year, didn't you?
I did.
Did you come home, or did you stay in school?
I came home.
Did you?
Yeah, I came home. I don't even I try not to think about it. I just had some personal problems, some personal issues. I can't even put my finger on it. I think it was maybe partly emotional. I felt like I wasn't I was pretty sheltered growing up, and I don't think I was quite ready when I went away.
So you came home, and then enter 1986,
Yeah.
and then you'd been known as a sprinter.
Yeah.
And now the next thing you know, I see your name and a whole lot of records on 400 and 800.
Yeah.
Does the coach take you aside saying,
Yeah.
there's more in your tank than you think you might be?
Yes, that's what he did. He said he wanted me to try the 800, and would I be willing to give it a try? Of course, I said yes. And I felt like at the time it was a stretch, you know, because it was a long race, the 800, it was a long race. But he did. He took me aside and said, I want to try this. And my workouts changed slightly. He really tried to cater my workouts to this new event that I was running. So I remember doing some specific workouts that were different from what I had done previously.
Was that, did you grasp that? I mean, not only the coach saying, hey, let's do longer 400, 800, but is that something you welcomed, or did you say, okay, I'll try it?
No, I really did grasp it. I feel like I was always willing to try. If a coach suggested something, I was really up for it. I did. I wanted to try the 800. I was curious how I could do in the 800. And you know, the 400 I had run my freshman year, and I went to nationals on the 400. But I realized that, you know, at nationals I didn't win for the 400 at nationals, and and these girls were so fast, and I thought, well, maybe I could do better in the 800 if I just moved my distance up a little bit. So I didn't think of it. It wasn't my idea. I'm pretty sure it was my coach who suggested it, and I was like, yeah, let's give this a try. You know, so that's how that started.
And then drum roll up to the nationals.
Yeah.
And I think I read a headline someplace where hoped to be in the top 5 in the nationals. I mean, that was sort of a aspirational,
Yeah.
and obviously it worked out much better. Could you walk us through that whole race? Because that,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went into nationals having.
and where was it, by the way?
Oh, Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'd run the 800 a few times in preparation. You know, he had me running at a couple play. I went to Jesse Owens and ran against some like Joetta Clark, and I ran, and then I ran it when we were down in Florida during spring break. I really only ran it a handful of times, and so when I got to nationals, I had run something like a 204, 205, 206, in that range. But the 800 had heats, and so you had to qualify to run in the final. So in my heat, and my strategy was often go to the front, because I was used to the sprinting. And so I would go to the front of the race, and I knew I had, I had 2 laps to cover, so I kind of knew I had to pace myself. And I talked to my coach about it, and we kind of came up with a plan that I would run the first lap like I always do. I go out fast, and then when we had trained for it, and he said at the 500-yard mark or meter yard mark, try to change gears, try to dig down and find this other gear. And so that's what I had in my head. What I needed to do was, okay, when we get to that 500-meter mark, I just had to really find more heart. I don't know how else to describe that. And so I would run. I would run very hard down the back straight, and then when you hit the 200-meter mark, that was when you just had to give everything to it. And the 200 meter, when you're at the last 200 yards, meters, just run as fast as you can. And that's what I did.
What's the emotion? I mean, you weren't expected to win. I mean,
No, I wasn't. Well, let's see. 2 nights before, I had run the qualifying, and so I was running at 2:02. So I, knew I had it in me after I finished that race. I was like, okay, that wasn't bad. I was like, I wasn't overly depleted, if you will. So I had in my head, I knew that I could do faster if I needed to. Now, my qualifying heat, I was second, so someone had finished slightly ahead of me, and I was with that person the whole time. So when I went into the final, I knew I was just going to have to give it my all. And I don't know what your question. I can't remember your question now.
well, your emotion. I mean, all of a
My
sudden,
emotion.
in second place, I just can tell you. I can. Let me just read this
Okay.
while you're grasping this.
Yeah.
This was an article that just appeared in the Post Journal.
Yeah.
Scott Kinberg wrote it about Ron. It said Scott's favorite memory in all the years I've known him came in June 1986. That's when Jamestown native Karen Bakewell was running in the NCAA Division I Track and Field Outdoor Championship in Indianapolis, competing for Miami, Ohio University. Karen broke the meet record in 800 meters. Her time of 2:00.85 was just ahead of crowd favorite Tina Parrott of Indiana. The report I received that night came from Karen's father, Gene, your dad, who witnessed in person his daughter's brilliance. Ron could not be in Indy because, surprise, surprise, he was on the road with a bunch of Strider's kids and had no idea of the pre-internet, pre-cell phone era Karen had done. So Ron called the Post-Journal to find out. When I told Karen, a former Strider, was an All-American and a Division I champion, there was silence on the other end of the line. Ron was so moved that he couldn't speak for what seemed like 30 seconds.
Yeah. I'm seeing Ronnie in my head pause there and think about it before he says something.
Yeah.
That was the emotion. I didn't grasp really what I had done. I didn't realize. I mean, for a long time afterwards, I really didn't realize what I did. So it was, I don't know, just exuberance. I was overwhelmed. I was elated. And I was, I guess, very proud of what I had done. I didn't really realize what the immensity of it at the time. In fact, I'm not sure I really realized it until years later what significance it is. So, yeah, it was probably the best feeling I've ever had in my life to cross the finish line and have achieved this outstanding record this time, and to have beat all of these women who were amazing runners. Just it was just one of the best feelings of my life. I every once in a while I try to relive it. I think about it, and it was a gift. It was something I always have, and I feel very grateful for having achieved that. There were a lot of people that helped me to get there. And I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude, really.
So they give you a medal.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's at home. It's at home, and we have a little office there, and I have it in there, a couple of pictures, and
Do you ever watch this? It's because it was on CBS.
yeah, I've never seen the video.
Really?
Really, yeah.
Well, I don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll find it.
Okay.
Find it.
Never
The
seen-
women's 800 meters, that went to Karen Bakewell, Miami of Ohio.
She led from the start and just held off local favorite Tina Parrott.
I mean, at some point, the career did not continue, did it?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that by design?
No, it wasn't. I went to the TAC National meet after that in the summer, and I twisted my ankle while I was practicing, and I didn't have a good feeling about it, and so I withdrew from the meet. So I didn't run after that. Well, the next season, I started getting ready, started running again, and I was winning races, and I started to have ankle problems. I started having ankle pain, and it got bad, and so I ended up ruptured my tendon at a track meet, and that was kind of brought everything to an end. I had to have surgery on my ankle, so I had a couple of surgeries on my ankle, and it was pretty serious. So that ended that run, so to speak.
Well, what a run it's been.
Yes, for sure.
And
That's
I,
for sure.
I just so thrilled that
Yeah.
you came here today to tell this
Oh.
whole story.
Well, I'm humbled. I look around and I see all these wonderful records and people who are fantastic athletes, and I'm very humbled by it. So I thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Karen. And by the way, your baseball card will look terrific.
All right, great. I look
Great.
forward to that.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
The women's 800 meters, that went to Karen Bakewell, Miami of Ohio.
She led from the start and just held off local favorite Tina Parrott.